Hello there and good morning. Today is a momentous day for not the best reasons because I am now officially unemployed. I got laid off yesterday, but don't worry about me because if you can take what you see me make on here on this channel and know how I rock when it comes to a process to do things, it works the same way for job hunting. So I'm actually feeling very optimistic about this. This could be a bit of a blessing in disguise because I feel I was actually probably really underpaid for my role. So this might end up being an accidental big raise if I'm lucky. So y'all think positive thoughts because I'm thinking positive thoughts and we're going to rock this shit out. But in the meantime, the other good news for you guys is that gives me more time to do content for you. So I'm going to be doing that as well in this time being. And the subject of today's video is going to be something that I did a project and I kind of kicked myself for not making this, but hey, we have another opportunity to do so. And that is going to be working on a figure repaint / display. So if you have an action figure at home that you really like, especially if it has really nice not articulation, really nice sculpting, but the painting is kind of shit, this is a video for you because so many times that's the case. And the reason that is because a lot of time these companies have really nice sculpts made, and I don't know the business financial reason behind everything, but essentially what happens is you have a really nice sculpt made by a lot of these figure companies. This is actually a rarity because this is an old figure. This is from like 2000, 2001, that time frame. It's pretty old, which makes this even rare. Nowadays, you see a lot more of these where figures have very nice articulation, but the paint's kind of meh. The paint's actually not bad on this. I just know I can do better, and I'm going to demonstrate to you why. So I've been watching companies that, I've been watching a channel that recognizes this as a thing called Jurassic Park Compound. You guys need to check this guy out because he's who I'm learning from on this specific subject a good bit, as well as my other outside experiences and knowledge. But yeah, essentially the idea is you have these figures that are sculpted really beautiful, and when they get sent overseas to be made in factories, probably in China and stuff like that, they're painted on an assembly line, so the paint apps aren't going to be as amazing as the sculpts were because simply somebody in an assembly line is painting it, and they're not going to do the detail like you or I would do, right? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do a new paint app. This guy normally came with a stand, but since I had to purchase him off eBay and in parts because this is a Build-A-Figure, we're going to make him a custom stand. We're going to do a new paint job. I'm going to assemble him too first, and when I assemble, I'm going to fill these seams. I'm going to hide any kind of seam lines because I want this thing to just look as flawless as a freaking like $300 statue that you were to buy online. We're going to make our own $300 statue. It's going to be dope. This figure is super fucking rare, which that's why I'm really excited about this too. This thing is so rare. I got so lucky to find the pieces for this because like you can't find it anywhere. But this is a Dante Build-A-Figure from the Devilman series. But that's what we're going to work on. And I hate to only just show you end result here, but this is the one that I just finished a couple of days ago, which was from the same series, but not a rare one called Jinman. It's a character from Devilman. I could probably do a whole separate video on Devilman, but honestly, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna tell you to go watch the Bonsai Pop video on it. If you want a link for that, let me know in the comments. Somebody let me know in one of my last video in the comments that needed a link. If you do that, if you ask for a link for things, I will respond and give you that link. This is the figure that I did the repaint and the custom base and shit for, this Jinman. And tell me I didn't fucking kill it, y'all. This is awesome. I'm so happy with what I pull off with this. And today we're going to work on teaching y'all how to do these things. So like, yeah, it's dope. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to 3D print a custom base for this guy. We have to pick out a 3D base to print for him because I don't know what base I'm going to use. It's obviously going to be evil shit because he's a demon. So we're going to pick out a cool base for him, print it. We're going to assemble the figure, paint it, paint the base, and the whole 9 yards. This is the beginning of the video because I'm going to be doing it in sections today because that's how I'm going to be doing my art. It's going to break it up throughout the day and make them in nice little nuggets. What should make an easier digestible video for the end result. And if we're really happy with this and we want to keep rocking and rolling, I got a lot more material to work on. Literally with Jurassic Park Compound, I'm probably going to do some of his videos and do some of these in repaints in his style. So that's going to be the subject of today's video. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so welcome back, and here we are. The Dante figure is now assembled as much as I want it assembled. I specifically didn't attach like permanently the hands and head because the seams that they would create are hidden behind little like fur tufts kind of. So it's A, that's not a big deal, and B, I want to be able to paint under those, and then that also conveniently gives me the choice to pose them in any specific way I want after the fact. But the other parts, they're basically super glued together. I tried hot glue It just doesn't seem to attach to whatever this kind of rubbery plastic is. Super glue is. And then the next move here is we're gonna go, we're not going anywhere. It's in my drawer 3 feet away. I'm gonna do like a mix of Milliput and I can't remember, I feel like it might be alcohol that thins it out, because as you can see there are some like big cracks there that we're gonna fill those. And then also with the Milliput, I think, like I said, you cut it with alcohol and it makes it smoother, and I can basically gap fill to where you will not only will it be physically filled without a gap, but there won't be a visible seam. That does mean that we're gonna need to repaint this. So I know this is a sweet looking black color. I can make it look better. Also, since I have to do that as well, I'm gonna look over the figure, and if I see any seam lines from the manufacturing process, I might as well just go ahead and hide those too, since I'm gonna have to repaint. And then here's the rest of the Devilman stuff. I had to reorganize my desk this morning, so I felt better about it. But you know, like this guy, he's good to go, as you saw. I'm probably gonna do so maybe some blue washes with Sailor, because he's already sick. There's not a lot I want to do with him. He already looks so good. Not really sure about him yet, because there's a lot of things about this paint job I like, but I feel like maybe I could neaten it up a little, because he almost looks like he has turbo dark paint with his pearlescence. It's pretty dope. He's staying as is, because oh my god, sick. Already just happy with him as is. Don't know about him. I mean, like, I thought about maybe repainting him, because like the tribal tattoos are definitely dating this figure to the 1990s. He's gonna just get a cleanup, because I already like his color configuration, but he's a used figure that is definitely beat up and just needs some cleanup work on him that can be done. So that we'll end up doing with him. The only other thing I gotta do is if I do like an actual Devilman figure, I've decided if you get the regular Devilman figure as is, it's usually pretty cheap online, but there's a winged version of Devilman that is super fucking expensive, and I don't want to pay for the super expensive Devilman, because I am Shinigami Art Studio. I'll fucking make one. What I may do actually is 3D print some really dope bat wings from a giant Cthulhu that I have STLs for, and do my thing that you know I do, and morph them to his back and give him those badass bat wings. And I'll probably like go ham on that figure and do like I did with my Nightmare Custom. So like that'll be pretty fucking wild, you know. But that's not only us repainting a figure, but get bashing it up a little. But that's it for this section of the video. When I come back, I've got to do several other like this video errands to run. When I get back, we'll start to full with the Milliput, and I probably want to maybe do a little more in-depth. I'm trying to, as I make these videos, go more in-depth in my processes. Like, I'm very happy. I think that the Predator video we did was a nice step up in explaining my processes so you can follow along more than normal, but I want to go even further in depth. It's just kind of tricky with some of these projects. I'd love to be able to do the process while I'm talking, so you can watch me do it like the videos I like to watch. It's tricky with a smartphone. That will mean that I'm going to end up having to transition over to the camera that I bought for this. So, you know, I kind of should be already using this. I'm just not. Sorry, but that's probably going to be the next step, because I want to be able to like just do this whole process with you and you watch me do it. I know that will be beneficial, but that's the direction I will be moving in with this stuff. So stay tuned. All right, damn it, and welcome back. It is now what scientists call nighttime, because I've been doing stuff, but no worries. So here we are at the next step. And what happened here was we use this stuff called Milliput. This is a putty that you use to like fix things, make things. It's a kick-ass thing that you need to have. It needs to be in the arsenal of stuff you use if you're making any of the things that you watch on my channel. It's a little pricey. It's like $11 for a tiny little box, but it's fucking worth it because of the things you can do with it. I kind of killed the last of mine, so I kind of decided I was going to go ahead and just use a little more on another project over here. So what you do is you mix it with even parts of itself. So it's like half of the yellow and half of the gray together, and it makes a neutral colored putty, if you will. But the cool thing is, and shout out to Marco Frizzoni. He has a YouTube channel. He's a much more famous than me painter and creator person. He says if you mix alcohol with it, it waters it down, and that way you can kind of smooth it into stuff. And that's literally what I've done here. So for this figure, for example, what I did was, before this, I went ahead and connected all the parts of the build a figure and glued them together with super glue. I tried hot glue. The hot glue just didn't bite sufficiently, and we weren't getting a good bond. So we switched to super glue, and I did all parts except for a couple, which you see how. And then after I did that, my next job was to fill these gaps with the Milliput, so that there's not big gaps. And I also try to kind of fix some, I guess you can call them manufacturing issues, where there's like these big hinges in the back. I guess maybe it's supposed to do a transformation that I don't want it to fucking do. It's gonna look stupid on my. I'm just gonna display it like a statue. So I filled that in. Now after it dries, I'll probably maybe kind of sculpt it a little bit with like a blade or something if I feel like I want to add some of this texture, or like a Dremel perhaps, but maybe not. Let's see how it looks. But I filled in those holes, so now those are gone in the shoulders, and the creases between the shoulders are filled in, and between the sockies are done and filled in. And then the only parts that we have here, and I think I mentioned in this video, so if I did mention it earlier in the video, sorry for the redundancy, but if I didn't, I don't want to leave it out, is that I have assembled everything except for a couple parts. So also the tails, I assembled those. I hit those with a hairdryer to soften them up, and I'll do some posability. I'll decide some final posing when I'm done with it, but just to kind of, they were kind of a little wonky from being in the shipping package, so this doesn't look horrible. Actually, I may end up just doing a pose something like this, where they're like reaching around with their little whips. It's pretty cool. Anyway, all that's put together with the exception of the hands and the head, because the hands and the head have these kind of fur pieces, if you see here, and they kind of cover the line of the... Why are you fucking struggling to focus now? Jesus Christ. The fur on the parts like cover the line where it connects to the part, so I don't care about that being connected for the painting, because anything I can, when I do stuff like this, if I can not have to do that, it's better, because it makes it easier for me to paint like the inside of this fur, right? So we're not going to glue it if we don't have to. We don't really have to. Like there's a bit of a seam. Jesus Christ. There's like the tiniest little bit of a seam, but it's not going to be really a fucking problem here for the hands and the head. So this is where we pause for the night, because this shit does need to like cure like overnight, but when it gets done, it's hard as a rock. Like it's some great stuff, because I've done a couple pieces with it before, and I've tried so many different things. I mean, I don't want to be too much of a repeating of what you will see in a Marco Frazzoni, but it's like shit. I've tried Tamiya putty, I've tried DOS clay, etc., etc. They all have their drawbacks, but this stuff is pretty great because it doesn't shrink too much. It tends to flow really well in a piece. It just does a good job for what we're doing here today, which are like these larger creatures, and he uses them on minis with spectacular results too. So it doesn't mean you just have to do big stuff. But I also I cleaned up. I already had these filled with Tamiya putty, and they kind of look like shit. So I went again and chased after on top of that with some more of the Milliput, and these should look really good. So when I prime this, those gaps should literally just be missing at all. Like in my past experience, it like hides a gap perfectly, because what you do is like you mix the Milliput, you cut it with some alcohol, and then you make it into kind of a thicker but very pliable paste, and then you can go after the fact. What I like to do is like I'll spread it in the little cracks with my finger. It's kind of messy, you're gonna wash your hands. I do that, and then I'll get my fingers like literally with just some alcohol and rub that around further, because it liquefies it down even further and smooths it even further to really hide those lines. And I mean, right now it's kind of visible because it's different colors, but once I repaint this, that shit should be like pretty much invisible. It'll be fucking awesome. So that's what we've done here tonight. So just remember this tip with this Milliput. Get this stuff and play with it like I'm showing you here, because as you should see in the next video, when it is what scientists call daytime, in the day, we'll see how it turns out after we've primed it and shit, and it should be pretty awesome. So I managed to fucking make a very simple explanation. Take 6 minutes to explain, but I wanted to go in detail. But that's it for this segment, and then we'll be back when we do the next step. Okay, bye. All right, good morning. Here we are back again. The stuff's had time to cure overnight, and this is what we're left with currently. So it's texture or whatever. It's basically a hard plastic for all intents and purposes, which is perfect for what we want to do. The gaps are filled on this, so this one is good for the next step, For me, the next step is I'm going to go over this very carefully and see some spots that I think that once they're primed and painted would look kind of blank. So I'm going to do a little bit of actual like carving. So what I may do, for example, is I might need to bring back some muscle sinew over that part on his like lat, essentially. Do some of that, and then maybe that looks like there might be a bit of a line here that I'm going to have to Dremel down, possibly. I may still do a little more random gap fill if I feel it needs to be necessary with some baking soda and super glue, as it does sand very well and make a nice uniform surface when you have to work on things, as you saw with my giant mech model video. But that's essentially what the step is, where we're at with that. And then once we're done with that, I'll come back and show you where I've done a little artistic work on these little patches. And then the next step after that would be to actually prime it to prep for paint. Same thing with the Tarrasque here. Overall, this one will probably require less sculpting work, because I think it should look pretty smooth for the fact that it's kind of just the style of the sculpt itself. I mean, I'll probably sand some things here because that the little, I don't know what you want to say, like the texture of it needs to be more uniform to the rest of the model. I did actually see one thing I goofed, and somehow I missed a big old patch behind his leg, and I could let it slide, but you know I'm not gonna. So I'm probably going to fill that with super glue and baking soda, because I checked the epoxy and even in the sealed Tupperware container, because it reacts when it's mixed, not like exposure to air. This shit is solid as a rock on the inside, so it's done, and it's done its job, and we are officially out of Milliput now. Hashtag taking donations for Milliput. But so that's the next step that we're going to do. After that, we'll talk paint app or whatever, as far as what we want to do color wise. I do need to print him a base. I'm gonna tell you right now that will probably be later in the process, because right now what I'm doing as a little side project, just to mention it because it's not the subject of this video, is I'm actually 3D printing some supportless filament terrain. And why I'm doing this is I have a lot of rolls of filament where I just had like a tiny little bit of filament left, and I'm like, man, I don't want to fool with like mixing batches of filament to like make stuff, because sometimes when you hop from one filament to the other, it can cause like little gaps or just inconsistencies in the like it's kind of a weak spot, if you will, sometimes, where it's like you can literally accidentally break the model off because it just didn't adhere too well to the other one when it kind of started the next kind of filament. So I don't like to do that usually now. So that being said, I had all these little bits of filament left over that I couldn't really do much with. Well, I found these files on Thingiverse for free, and they are made to be printed support free. And because of that, like, I was actually able to print this freaking water tower without supports on filament, which I'm glad my 3D printer is pretty well tuned. It was able to handle this, and it's a very structurally strong. My old printer, this shit would have been spongy and broke easily, but this is not the case with this. So yeah, this might be a future video, these little Battletech buildings. Anyway, I'm gonna make these until I run out of my little spare roll of filament here, and after that's done, then I'll be free to actually pick out a 3D printed base, and we'll probably sculpt on it too. I really want to go all out with this, but in the interim, yeah, these are being printed, so expect a video on this soon. So I'll do the patching of the Tarrasque. God damn it, camera. I'll do the patching of the Tarrasque. I'll do some sculpting on this dude, and I'll do some overall cleanup work, and then when I'm back will probably be these pieces that will have been done, and then it will be primed. So that's what we're going to come back to. All right, everybody, I'm back. That took like all day, but I took some breaks today. I went to the fucking zoo and saw some animals, and then came back and worked on this some more. And my camera's probably just like gonna struggle with this because it's a lot of black, but I filled in the gaps. I think I did a pretty good job. This isn't a perfect sculpting job. I could have spent like hours probably like sculpting scales and shit and doing all that, but I just basically wanted to hide the seams for the most part. And I'd say this is a mission success, because there were some huge hinges on his back right there, like literally in the center there, and they're basically gone. And it's a lot of it was me like doing some sculpting with a Dremel after I laid down the Milliput. And then I primed the whole thing in white, and then prime the whole thing in black to bring it all to one uniform color. And then I coated it with some matte coat enamel, like I keep yammering about. And it should make a nice surface to hold some paint. We're not gonna do a lot of complex painting on this though. We're basically gonna apply, I mean, a couple things are gonna get like mouth, teeth, those sorts of things. Those are the details, the skulls and shit. Those are gonna get some separate detail work. Beyond that, he's gonna stay pretty much black. But we're gonna use the turbo dork to add some details to it. So like we're gonna add some highlights, kind of like how like a raven looks black, but there's like kind of a pearlescent color to its feathers in some places. That kind of vibe. So that's where we are. And I'm gonna do the paint, and I guess I'm gonna try to remember to like break it down into little sessions. I wanna try to treat this like I treated the Predator video. So that's this. Be back with more stuff to show you. Good Lord, this video is gonna take forever. So we're back again, and the next thing that we're doing actually is the base. I don't know, I thought the painting would be done quicker, but I've had other things to deal with. Fortunately though, it does mean that actually the base is ready for like the whole painting stuff. Anyway, what I did was I went in and I found a base on this one particular is from my Artisan Guild Patreon for a, not a mini, but like a boss. So it was a bigger one, but I still need to enlarge it more because this is a big figure. What I had to do was I went into Cura and I changed the dimensions. What I will do, and if you want a video of this, let me know, but I specifically will make it bigger. Like I'll go in and tell the whole size of it to be like 170% larger, but I don't want it being super thick because A, it's not necessary, B, it uses too much filament. So what I do is I then unclick the uniform scaling button and then take the thickness back down to 100% so it's the same thickness as the original file, which is still acceptable. This is a really good flat base that's thick enough to be sturdy to hold our project. So that's where we are with this. And what you're looking at right now is I've printed the base, I made sure it fit the dude, and now we're starting the quote unquote window dressing. I'm gonna just be typical demon edgelord here because it's a fucking demon and it's gonna be a bunch of skulls and ooze and shit. So I have gone and I printed like, I don't know, a little more than half a dozen of these little support-free skulls with the filament, because I was able to get away with that due to the quality. That was the one thing. I went and printed one small to be like, how's this going to come out? Are we going to have to do resin? And I think it's good enough for this project today. So what I've done here, you see those little dots, right? That is just showing me how big a flat area needs to be for the feet, because this is what the feet are going to attach to the base, okay? We can get artsy-fartsy around those dots. Inside those dots, we leave it as is, shape-wise, because what we're going to do is we're going to do layers of globby hot glue mess, and then we're going to add in more skulls, and we're just going to heap it up to where it's like a mutated meat mass, and you'll see skulls intertwined in it. But at the base part of it, he'll still be able to stand in the middle, and it'll just make a nice dynamic piece of a place for him to stand and look all scary and edgy like the demon that he is. So I'm gonna go do some more unrelated random shit, and when I come back, we'll start working on that. Because I think now that I was actually able to make the base before I did the paint of the figure, we can kind of change the order of things. It doesn't matter. You can change the order or not. But we'll go ahead and sculpt the base and then coat it with primer and have it ready to paint. Then at this point, we can go back and we can paint the monster and then paint the base, glue it together. Boom, project is done, everyone's happy. So I'll be back. Okay, so I apologize in advance because the sound's probably gonna be really not great right now because I've got a fan running, but I am dealing with that fact so I can show you live what I'm doing here. As I stated before, we're gonna put the skulls on and we're gonna layer hot glue, and you layer the hot glue in layers and then you put it in the fridge to cool it down, and then you pile another layer on top of it so you get multi-dimensional layers, because hot glue will get hot and then it will start to flatten and not do what you want it to do, which applies to this as well. You do little marks and little pokes, and then you put it in the freezer to cool it down so you can keep your textures when you're applying additional textures. And that's what we're doing right now. This is round 2. I'm really trying to drive the tryptophobia home. Just stab like a million holes in this with a hot knife. Again, I really hope the audio quality is passable on this. If not, I'm sorry. So this is what we're doing. And we're just about done with layer 2. And then once I finish layer 2 here, I got some other little tricks up my sleeve to make this look disgusting. And yeah, this is it. You're seeing it here. You lay your layers of hot glue down, and you just stab it with a hot knife. Make it look really gross and pockmarked. Thank you for your patience. And now we are at the next step. You already saw what I was doing. I did check the audio and make sure it sounded hearable. I don't know how good it is because you heard a loud ass fan running to suck smoke out of the region. But after we did the little poking, I said there was another trick. And you know what the other trick is? You're going to take and you're going to make a mixture of, in this case, black paint, Elmer's glue, baking soda. Whip it up, slather it all over everything, and it covers up some of the layer lines pretty good. Gives it some texture, some depth, kind of because it just gross charred look to it. So even before we prime it for painting, we're already really getting to the point we want to be. So yeah, here we are now. So pretty cool, huh? Pretty neat little trick that I cooked up here. So yeah, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prime it, and then I'm probably also going to put a coat of matte coat enamel just to make it durable and of the same substance and material as this now primed figure that will be painted and go on it. And that's it for now. So I'll be back. All right, so here's the first layer of the base colors. It's literally just starting with an unbleached titanium for the bone, and then a mixture of weird colors for brown. You know, just make your own up, but I essentially was going for the look of like really old hamburger meat. We're gonna start there. That's our first layer. You know, real simple stuff. Couple coats, that's what a base color is. The next layer, I'm mixing in some disgusting slime for the freaking guts, and it will add some depth to that as well. Just gonna add it some spots, not everywhere. Maybe some kind of wider areas, so I'm gonna be picky on where I put them. And that'll be the next step, so we'll be back. Welcome back. It is now the next step. And I basically went over the skulls with some speed paint palette bone, took some watered down disgusting slime and just touched some spots with the meat, adding some layers of putridness. And I guess, you know, we're just kind of building up like dry meat because I'm doing this in layers. It's like here's the bones are dirty, and then the meat's a little brown, and then it's going to have different little tones. I really have spent way too much time looking at rotten stuff to understand this. But, you know, you build up what the meat would look like without the blood, and then you start to add the blood, and that's when the red washes and shit are going to come in to really look disgusting and gross and particly and all that good stuff. So that's where we are now. I'm going to do another layer and come back and tell you what I did with the layer. Okay. The next step was the brown that I had there. I mixed a little pink into it. You know, it's bright pink, you don't want it directly on there, but if you mix it in there, it kind of gets the look of like intestines. And then dry brush a little on the meat for more volume on top of the putrid slime stuff too, you know. Just really building that shit up. And then I took mixed some black and white to make what scientists call gray, and mix it in there, and then hit it on a paper towel, and then dry brush this to give it a little more depth, because now comes the raining of blood and the most metal part of making this thing, which is just the juices. And I'll do several colors of red with washes and speed paints, and it's going to be cool, and you'll maybe like it or don't, I don't know, but we'll be back with it. And welcome back. And now it's disgusting. So it was really just a matter of mixing dark wood and blood red, because again, I know way too much about gross shit, but you know, if you look at blood and like real violent things that have happened, it starts to turn brown and it oxidizes. So you don't want like bright red to look real. You want it to be like brown, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, just no, I don't want you to tell me anything special here. Just fucking smacked it everywhere on this piece. You know, I mean, I did kind of try to be a little tasteful with it. You know, it needs to be more on the meat than the skulls per se. And then all over the various parts of the stone on the ground, because you know something happened here that got messy. And I think the next thing will be is I'm actually going to hit the skulls with another round of pallid bone. See how that looks. I want to darken them a little bit somehow. I don't know yet. Maybe mix pallid bone with like a drop of red or something. No, I don't know. I'll figure something and then I'll come back and tell you whatever it was. Okay, and for all intents and purposes, we are now done. What I did after I did the video was I actually just did another wash of just plain pallid bone over top of the skulls. And then after that, I let that dry, and then I did some random washes over the meat and skulls of red tone washes and brown washes. And then I also used strong tone over the base to give more contrast, and that's pretty much it. So we'll seal this base up, and then we can start on the figure. Hello again, and hi, and how are you doing? And we're back today, and we are finished with the base, as you saw in the last video. Now we are onto the figure. I did some basic stuff because I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with the figure, but I did know some simple things I wanted to do. I'm going to zoom in and show you what we've done so far. First off, with the skull on the forehead and the teeth, we started with it's called like unbleached titanium from Liquitex. It's just basically like a bone, like an off-white. We started with that. I mixed in a little pink for the gums to get the gum coloration there. I did actually speckle some white on the gums to fake a glistening look to it there, if you will. Also for the lip, I used a little bit of gray with black, just a slightly lighter color to make the lip pop a little bit. And then hit that all with different like brown washes essentially to grime it up and to outline those. So there was that piece. And then the eyeballs, I actually did a layer of the unbleached titanium as well, just to change it up from the black that it all was. So I could then go on top of that with just like a brick red acrylic paint. I mean, everything here is acrylic paint. To do that, and then in the middle, a couple layers of me just putting a dot of bright fluorescent yellow, and then just simply putting a single dot in the middle with a Sakura pen to get that crazy eye look that I like, and then a light wash just to outline the eyeball itself. And hey, you got a nice looking face there. Started to do a little bit with the claws here, just a gray again, because there'll be a wash to kind of define some things. I'll probably do the rest of the spikes that way, but I couldn't really figure out how I wanted to decorate him until I'm like, go back to the source material. Because the thing is, Dante is not actually from Devilman. Dante is from another creation of Devilman's creator called like Demon Lord Dante or some shit. Anyway, I started reading the manga. It's very similar to Devilman. But I found one color image of Dante in there, and I was like, you know what? I know this is weird, but I really want to stay true to the source material, so we're going to pick some colors for Dante that will be similar to what you see on the old picture from the early 70s. So I'm actually going to find a way to make this not look cheesy on this. Wish me luck, right? So I guess the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start. I don't know if I want that magenta or fuchsia color for the fur. I might like red it up a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe I can find a good mix of color to start with the fur, because I think that might be where we're going to start. I think we're going to start with the fur. We'll start there, and I'll mix up some colors, and I'll come back and I'll tell you what I did once I figure out what I'm going to do to get that color. All right, so we're back now with the base colors and the turbo dork applied. What we've done here is, for the main part of the body, we are using Siberia for that darker blue, whereas on the wings I'm using Crystal Cavern. For the fur, I'm actually using a mix of Hotline, which is that I always called it Grandma Lipstick Pink, with black ice to darken it down. So that's how we got that specific color I wanted. The horns and tail, the horns are, it's called Emerald Nightmare, but I actually cut it with Appleseed for the spikes on the back and the tail. I wanted it to be a little brighter and pop a little more. Trying to think what else I've done here besides from what you've seen last. I'm gonna have to still do like the spikes, like the actual like spikes coming out of the wings and the toenails and stuff, with probably a gray. Face on the back, Crystal Cavern for the actual face itself, and then for the eyes I just painted them white. Went and used the yellow speed paint, and then I think that was it, because I think the speed paint itself actually made those eyes look that outlined. So the next thing we're going to do, which is pretty much wrapping up the paint part of this, is to do some assorted washes over some parts to add depth and volume. And then we're gonna paint the spikes and the nails and stuff this gray. I don't know why, I just kind of feel like I like gray. It's not black, so it doesn't blend into the figure and disappear. But I like that enough. And then we'll clear coat it and we'll glue it to the base, and then we're gonna be ready to rock and roll. So I'll be back. All right, welcome back. If you made it this far through the video, congratulations. They're long videos and I appreciate your patience, and thanks for hanging in there. So I hope this has been helpful. So we're almost at the finish line here. I know, like, how many more steps, right? But we pretty much got the statue painted. Statue, it's an action figure that is now a statue. And a big thing that I did, and I don't want to sit here and tell you my mixes because that's pointless. I'm not teaching you anything here. What I'm going to tell you is that you need to know, like, first I painted with the Turbo Dork colors, which you saw in the last step. But what I did with this step was there's something that you need to know to get this stuff the way it looks. And that is ratios. You need to understand ratios. I'm doing something here that I kind of made up, and that is I'm using a mixture of Army Painter washes and I'm using Army Painter speed paint. Why does this matter? Because I started to do just straight red Army Painter speed paint on the dreads, and the problem that we ran into was that the Turbo Dork was getting washed out to where you couldn't even see it underneath. And I'm like, oh shit, wipe it off with a paper towel real quick before it dries and start over. So what we did was we want to keep the effect of the Turbo Dork because that's part of why this is awesome. But we still want to have the depth that the speed paint will do. So what we do is we put down wash, and then we might put a couple drops of speed paint in there. So it gives it the depth, because I tried doing just a red wash and it almost looked like it did nothing to this. That's not what we wanted. So that's what you have to do. Now what you need to know too beyond that is like basic, what's the word? Color wheel stuff. This I needed to be basically a teal. And how do we get teal? It's blue and green, right? So it doesn't mean you mix always, like this would be, yes, red speed paint, red wash. But this would be green wash and maybe a couple drops of the dark blue of the speed paint. Actually, I think it was a mix of blue and green speed paint, but you want to mix them and play around with them and just understand how mixing colors gets different looks, because this is green and green, this is green and blue, you know, but I'm not going to tell you like which exact ones. You need to play with this stuff yourself and figure this out, because nobody told me this. This is just me fooling around and not having a basic understanding of colors. And so you need to start playing around with this stuff to get different results, because like the only thing beyond that, like this, I actually used some like ink, some blue ink with that mix of blue speed wash, blue wash, and then actually a little tiny little bit of black wash, because I didn't want it to be too bright blue, and then it would just not be the vibe that I wanted. It wouldn't be the color that I wanted, because these are the colors that I wanted. You know, the skin, for example, is Turbo Dork Siberia, and I didn't want to hide Siberia. I wanted Siberia to look like Siberia. I just needed to punch it up a little bit, because what the Siberia wasn't doing was like getting in some of these spots that I needed it to get into to give it the depth. It gave it the color I wanted. It gave it the pearlescence I wanted, but I needed to give it a little more depth. And in order to do that without changing it, I really needed a mix of stuff to put on it that was fairly translucent, that would drop down in these cracks and give this look. It was especially important on that purple, because as you can see now, the purple on his fur has so much more depth. And it was a similar thing. I think it might have been a blue wash or a red wash actually, with a couple of drops of purple speed paint. But again, don't focus on me telling you the exact colors here. The lesson to learn here is you want to mix it, because like if you want to really cover a thing, then you're going to use just straight speed paint, because it will basically, it's almost like a dye the way it interacts with paints, the way I use it. And if you don't want it to just overpower what you're doing, you need to really cut it with something. And I'm cutting it with washes. And I'm not going to tell you 2 drops or 3 drops, because you got to play with ratios, and because I want you to learn, you know, different ratios will produce different results. More speed wash, more speed paint, less translucency. More wash, more translucency. But that's how we get to this result here. That gives me this, just, you know, like with the tail. Yeah, it was the dark green. You could probably barely tell on the camera, but now it's like freaking emerald, you know, and that came from not only the Turbo Dork, but that came from using the washes and speed paints to punch it up. And, you know, our end result here is basically a statue that really captures, in my opinion, the original art, but really gives it a modern punch without being just super boring. So why did I say we're not done yet? For one thing, right now, where are we at as far as the composition? We've got one thing glued to another thing. There's not really much tying these two together. And I had to sit here and ask myself, what can tie these two things together? For one thing, colors from both things being on it. So, initially, like, you look at this base and you're like, geez, super gory base, super flashy demon. But honestly, like, if you read Demon Lord Dante, it's brutal. Like, he is like these neon colors, but he's freaking, like, right in the first page, ripping the protagonist's arm off. Like, it's gory, it's nasty. And I mean, like, I didn't initially resort to this because I'm not the guy to, like, make blood guts monsters. I like more flashy, fascinating, weird monsters. But it's appropriate in this point because he is a violent monster. So what are we going to do? We are going to do the mixes again. We're going to mix these colors because I went and looked at, like, the different colors of like blood and painting blood. When blood dries, it gets closer to brown. So we're going to make a ratio, and we're going to splatter on the base and on the figure in some places. And how do you splatter blood? Either a toothbrush or a bristle brush, and you just, and it's messy. You want to do it in a booth or outside. And I'm going to literally I'm going to do more blood splatter on the bottom to tie it to the base, and a little bit of blood splatter randomly on the body, but it's really going to tie the figure to the base, make a nice coherent piece, and I'll be happy with it. It'll be what I need it to be. And then for this one in particular, because I was told, like, this probably should be glossier to make it look slimy. Normally I coat with a matte coat, especially with the pearlescent stuff. I'm wanting to make the pearlescent pop and making this look like this piece. It will be appropriate to do a gloss coat. So when I get back, all that stuff's going to happen. It will be done, and then we'll probably go outside so you can really see, because it's bright outside since it's pretty daytime-ish out there, to really see those colors outside in some natural lighting. So we'll be back and with just a few, and we'll take a look at that. So that's it. It's now done. It's finished. Did everything I told you there with the blood splatter. Did the super duper gloss, and I really feel like that was the move. Made everything look gross and bloody and stuff. And I do believe that the blood splatter has done a good job at tying everything together. So this is officially the second of my Devilman action figure revamp series. Very happy with this so far. I really am happy for the fact that, there's, what's the word? I was aiming to really pay a strong homage to Go Nagai's original work, because I didn't want to just totally change it up. At first I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but as I went on, I really felt like I wanted to make this an homage to the original, and I'm very happy with what I did. So if in the 1 in a billion chance that Go Nagai sees this, I hope he is happy with what I've done here. Anyway, but yeah, that's it. And then, it's the second in the series. I'm sorry that I don't have a tutorial for the turtle. I fucked up there. I should have made you a tutorial for him too, because I'm very happy with how he came out. But I think this calls for a whole series. What do you guys think? I think that it would be a good thing to do. Revamp all these action figures. I want to tell you right now, the next one that I got a bullseye on is on here, because look at him. He's cool as shit, and his color app is cool. It's just that it's an old figure that's been heavily weathered, and he could deserve a punch up in color. He's already technically pearlescent, so maybe he'll be the next one I do in the series. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a break from this for a while. I have had my heart set on doing one of the big 5-star stories models for a while now. It's been calling me to where it's been distracting to focus on this, so I wanted to do, so that's gonna be the next thing I do. I think also too, I really feel like the time has come where, I'm doing 3D printing and stuff, and I have hardware capable of doing it. I think it's time for me to start learning some 3D sculpting, and if I get any good, I'll pass on any knowledge along, because one of the next things I'm going to do with the Devilman figure is the original Devilman figure is getting a complete repaint. I hate that red. I'm going to make him the classic blue. But also, I'm going to give him some wings. So I think what I'm going to do, I have a Cthulhu model that I printed ages and ages ago that has some really dope semi-folded bat wings that I think I'm going to print those. And I'm going to fuse them with his back and make a winged Devilman and make a cool base. So that'll be a thing soon too. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope it was sufficient in explaining things. And if not, let me know in the comments and I'll do whatever. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.